Alright, so I'm going to come into this video knowing that this event has sparked a lot of debate, as it has every right to. I know a lot of people didn't really like AEW Dynasty 2025, but much to my surprise, and I bet the surprise to a lot of you watching, or I guess I should say listening to this video, is I actually quite enjoyed AEW Dynasty 2025. And no, it's not because of bias, because unlike a lot of people, I actually paid for the pay-per-view, but it was because it was actually quite good from start to finish, and a lot of people that I've talked to actually said the same. I know that most of the debate about this show came from the main event, and trust me, I'll get to that later, but I actually really enjoyed this show, and I'm going to talk about all the matches from start to finish in this official review for the show. Obviously, this is just my opinion, so I urge each and every single one of you listening to this video to leave your thoughts down in the comments below, as I'd very much love to hear what you guys have to say about the show, and be as honest and, respectful as possible. Obviously, we'll start with the pre-show. I didn't really check out the trios match, to be quite and brutally honest. Nick Wayne and crew, which is the team of Action Andretti and Leo Rush, defeated AR Fox and Top Flight, which is like, okay. I didn't watch this show on the pre-show, so I can't really give a review on it. But what I did check out was Anthony Bowens making his AEW return since the Acclaim split to essentially squash Max Caster in a 40-second match. I swear, the only good thing about seeing Max Caster on my TV screen is watching him get his ass kicked, which is like the best thing about his character. I will say as well, I'm glad Anthony Bowens is back, and from what I've seen, he's got a monster pop. It seems like the fans really enjoy his work, and I really cannot wait to see what AEW does with Anthony Bowens as a singles talent throughout. Billy Gunn is also his manager, so I'm glad that they're still together, and hopefully Billy Gunn can be taken seriously now. Same with Anthony Bowens, but I'm glad he's back. Then we get on to the main card, which was the men's Owen Hart quarterfinal match, Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight. Walking into this match, I really had very low expectations for this match, because I'm not going to act like every single TikTok content creator, acting like I know who every single fucking wrestler is. I had no idea who Kevin Knight was walking into this match, but I will say this match actually surprised me. It was very, very good from start to finish. Kevin Knight also had a decent amount of offense in, and Will Ospreay can basically work with a broomstick, and he can make it a 5-star match. Obviously, when Dave Meltzer reviews this show, if he hasn't already, this is going to be a 5-star match, but honestly, it's deserved. I heard Excalibur, I'm pretty sure, say this isn't the last time that we have seen Kevin Knight in AEW, and honestly, I really hope that is not the case, because Kevin Knight really, really impressed me, and I really hope that we can continue to see what Kevin Knight does from here. Obviously, Will Ospreay got the win, and he is honestly my pick to win the entire Owen Hart tournament, which I know my buddy Will Ferris said that his pick is Hangman Adam Page, but due to points that I will point out later, I really don't think that is going to be the case, but we'll get to that later. But what a win for Will Ospreay at Dynasty. Then we go on for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, which was the Hurt Syndicate defending against the Learning Trees, Big Bill and Brian Keith. Obviously, the Hurt Syndicate is super over, and it's very good to see, considering the fact that the Hurt Business was really the one of, if not the best things about WWE in the pandemic era. So I'm really glad that at least the OG 3 members of the Hurt Business got to reunite in AEW, and they're being booked prominently well. Big Bill is actually a fucking good wrestler, and I'm very glad that Big Bill is getting a bit of a spotlight on him, but it was obvious that the Hurt Syndicate was going to retain, and I'm not complaining about that by any means. In the ending of the match, MJF, who may or may not be a part of the Hurt Syndicate, got involved and helped the Hurt Syndicate get the win. So it's very clear that we are going to continue that storyline of will he, won't he, with MJF joining the Hurt Syndicate, which honestly, I see it ending in an MJF one-on-one match with Bobby Lashley, either at Double or Nothing or All In, which honestly would be a pretty decent match if I do say so myself. But good to see the Hurt Syndicate retain anyway. Then we go on to the women's Owen Hart quarterfinal matches. Mercedes Moné, aka Creative Control Banks, took on Julia Hart. This was a decently contested match. I can't really say I was the most invested in this match when I watched this last night, as it was obvious that Mercedes Moné was going to win this match. But I'm really glad that Julia Hart got a pay-per-view spotlight again, and she managed to hold her own against Mercedes. The ending of the match, I would say, was pretty rushed, as Mercedes Moné did a roll-up pin in order to get the victory in this match. But other than that, decent match nonetheless. But I really, really hope Julia Hart manages to rebound from this. I really feel like she deserves a lot better in her AEW career, considering the fact she's a former TBS champion and honestly should be a very strong contender for the women's title right now. But, you know, to each their own. Glad to see Julia Hart on pay-per-view as always. And I think it's plainly obvious that Mercedes Moné is going to win the Owen Hart tournament, which kind of sucks in my honest opinion. Then we go on to the AEW World Trios Championships as the Death Riders defended against Rated FTR. And this was a very fun match from start to finish, much to my surprise, because these 6 men fucking killed it. Throughout the entire match, obviously, they were playing on with the whole will he, won't he, in terms of Dax Harwood betraying both Adam Copeland and Cash Wheeler. And again, this was a very good match. A lot of near falls, a lot of amazing spots. But in the end, Wheeler Yuta managed to make Adam Copeland and Dax Harwood collide into each other and hit a Psycho knee in order to get the victory. The Death Riders retained the Trios Championships, which I know a lot of people didn't really like. But immediately following the match, Dax Harwood betrayed Adam Copeland, and it looked like he was going to betray Cash Wheeler as well. But Dax Harwood got Adam Copeland up anyway, and then in a beautiful transition, hit a Shatter Machine with Cash Wheeler, fully turning both members of FTR heel, and then Cash Wheeler went on to hit 2 concertos on Adam Copeland. If you followed me on Twitter last night, you would know I really, really was happy with this decision. Don't get me wrong, I predicted Rated FTR to win, but I feel like this direction was much better in my honest opinion. A heel FTR really could bring a lot of fresh air to the AEW tag team division, and in my honest opinion, FTR should go for the AEW World Tag Team Championships, and I'd even go so far as to say that they should even dethrone the Hurt Syndicate, because it appears plainly obvious that the Hurt Syndicate are baby faces, so it would be great for a heel FTR to at least contend for the titles. Obviously, this was a way for Adam Copeland to also be written off TV, which honestly, this was a good way to do it. And I've seen a lot of people on Twitter as well say that this was a way for maybe All In for Adam Copeland to reunite with Christian Cage to take on FTR in a tag team match, which if done right could be a very, very big match. But I feel like they would need to do a lot in order to transition Christian Cage back into a babyface after the amazing heel run he has had for the past few years in AEW. But if that happens, I'd be pretty excited to see Edge and Christian reunite, and maybe that could be how they end their careers on a very high note. But yes, I really enjoyed this heel turn for FTR, and hopefully a lot of big things can happen from that. After that, we got Timeless Toni Storm defending against Megan Bayne, and I will be honest, this was probably the most forgettable match on the show for me. I don't remember much of the spots in this match. I think this was my bathroom break match, if I remember from last night. But I do know that Tony Storm managed to retain the AEW World Championship, which didn't really surprise me. I know Wolf said that Megan Bayne was being booked very, very good leading up to this match, so maybe there was a chance she was going to win the championship. But anyone who knows a thing or two about professional wrestling, no offense to Wolf, obviously, knew that Tony Storm was going to win this match. And I feel like Tony needed to retain the championship anyway. Maybe Megan Bayne can earn herself a couple of more big wins and maybe get back in a championship contention. But I felt like it was way too early for her to win the belt, so it was the right decision. Tony Storm, I almost said Tony Khan, retains the AEW Women's World Championship. Then we go on to another men's Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinal match as Kyle Fletcher took on Mark Briscoe. Very decent match between the two, and again, this one had an obvious winner. Kyle Fletcher managed to defeat Mark Briscoe, which appeared obvious, but I'm not complaining at all. Kyle Fletcher has been booked like an absolute killer since he turned heel, and I know people really like to meme on him online, but Kyle Fletcher is very good in the ring, and I am very glad that AEW is seeing a lot of good in Kyle Fletcher, and hopefully a title reign could be in Kyle Fletcher's near future, whether that be for the International Championship or whether it be even the World Championship. He can contend for it. I very much enjoy the work that Kyle Fletcher is doing, or even if it's the TNT Championship. I'd very much love to see Kyle Fletcher as a singles champion at some point in the near future, but nonetheless, Kyle Fletcher advances in the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament. Then we go on to the Ring of Honor World Championship in a title versus mask match as Bandito took on Chris Jericho. Now, this match was a little bit of a mess. I think there was like a botch or two in this match, and the ending very much had me scratching my head. Obviously, Chris Jericho was tormenting Bandito's family. I believe his mother and his sister were in the crowd. Keep in mind this information because it's going to come into effect later. But in the ending of the match, Chris Jericho hid a baseball bat in between the steel steps, and he hit Bandito over the head with the baseball bat, which allowed Chris Jericho to retain the Ring of Honor World Championship. Well, we thought that led to Chris Jericho retaining the Ring of Honor World Championship, because right when it looked like it was about to be time that Bandito was going to get his mask removed, because, you know, that was the stipulation, Aubrey Edwards, for some reason, was out there just chilling with Bandito's family, and Bandito's mom and sister literally went into the ringside area and pulled out the baseball bat, which prompted Aubrey Edwards and the other referee, who I forget his name, to restart the match. Yes, instead of looking at an instant replay, Aubrey Edwards took the word of Bandito's family. Keep in mind this, because this could set a very horrible precedent. Okay, so all you need to do is just get your mom and your sister to be at ringside, and then if a heel wrestler cheats to win a match, all you got to do is just point out a very obvious weapon that's at ringside, and then the match gets restarted. So because of this, the match gets restarted, and Bandito hits his finisher and wins. I will say this was a decent match before the shenanigans. There was one spot where Bandito did like a vertical suplex but held Chris Jericho for like a minute in a very, very admittedly pretty funny spot. I'm glad Bandito is Ring of Honor World Champion, but I felt like the way that he won the belt was a little bit anticlimactic and a little bit of wacky booking, because Aubrey Edwards chose to believe Bandito's family instead of, I don't know, looking at footage. We could have gotten the same result, and it would have been logical if that happened. But, you know, whatever. Bandito's Ring of Honor World Champion. Chris Jericho's abysmal title reign is over. and the Jericho haters are happy, including myself. Then we go on for the TNT Championship in a match that apparently has no time limit and outside interference, as Adam Cole took on Daniel Garcia in a very, very decent match as well. I will say both guys really worked well with each other. And in the end, Adam Cole finally won a championship in AEW. Something that I never thought would be made possible, because at first I thought Tony Khan was allergic to giving Adam Cole a big win, but it finally happened. It only took almost 4 years of Adam Cole being in AEW for him to finally be a singles champion. Now, I do know that most of that was because of injuries, but still, I'm glad that Adam Cole is TNT champion, and not really a fault of Daniel Garcia, but his championship reign was kind of abysmal in of itself. It didn't look like Daniel Garcia really got much of a spotlight as TNT champion. And before all the Collision fanboys sit there and say, well, he had a couple of matches on Collision where he defended the belt, I watch mainly Dynamite, which is supposed to be AEW's A show. And if you want a championship to be legitimate, you need to book it on Dynamite, which Daniel Garcia, at least maybe in the weeks that I've checked out, has been entirely absent. But either way, I'm glad Adam Cole is TNT champion. Hopefully he gets booked well, and hopefully he has a very good program before he inevitably loses the title, and hopefully he can stay away from being injured. My boy is finally a champion. Then we go on to the triple threat match for the AEW International Championship, as Kenny Omega defended against Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey. And holy shit, this match was absolutely amazing. This was definitely match of the night, and this match went 31 minutes. Now, I know a lot of people could be highly critical of this match for being very flippity-floppity-flu and a bunch of near falls and a bunch of shit like that, but honestly, this match was very fun to see. Everyone got time to shine, everyone hit some very big spots, and all of them looked like absolute killers in this match. At one point in the match, I really enjoyed this when every competitor in the match tried to cover both their opponents at the same time, which was very creative on their part. In the middle of the match, it looked like Speedball Mike Bailey hit his knees hard on the apron, and Speedball Mike Bailey did a very good job in selling this knee injury throughout the entire match. Whether or not it's a work or a shoot, Speedball Mike Bailey did a very, very good job, and hopefully he's actually okay. Ricochet did very amazing in this match, and I know we all like to meme on Ricochet, but this is definitely the best in his career in a very long time, at least in the past half decade. Ricochet made a very good call in joining AEW, and he fits right in. But the true MVP is Kenny Omega. Only Kenny Omega can come back from a life-threatening illness and definite career-threatening illness and look like he hasn't missed a beat. Kenny Omega did very, very good in this match, and in the end, Kenny Omega hit an Avalanche One-Winged Angel on Ricochet, while Speedball Mike Bailey was hung upside down in the corner selling his knee injury in order for Kenny Omega to retain the International Championship. In a very, very, very fun match. I really enjoyed this. After the match, though, AEW Continental Champion Kazuchika Okada came out to confront Kenny Omega, and Kenny immediately fucked off, and that was all that came from that moment. Hopefully, Kazuchika Okada got a lot of money for coming out, because that seemed like the easiest paycheck anyone can do. I know this match definitely is not happening until All In, but why do we need the constant teases? This is just honestly stupid. And before you say, well, AEW All In is the biggest show of the year, so that's almost like criticizing Jey Uso and Gunther for being teased 3-4 months in advance. We know WrestleMania is a big fight feel. All In at the time doesn't really feel like that big of a show, and the only thing that really matters before All In season is the Owen Hart Cup at this point. So, I don't know, maybe the build to this match could be a lot better, because right now these constant teases that make people cream their pants isn't really doing it for me. And I could honestly care less about Kazuchika Okada as Continental Champion anymore. Hopefully the rumors of AEW unifying the International and Continental Championships are true, because I can't really handle one more second of Kazuchika Okada as International Champion. Oh, sorry, Continental Champion. Fuck. Then we go on to the main event, and easily the most divisive part of this entire show, as Jon Moxley took on Swerve Strickland. Now, this match was all right. A lot of extreme spots, if I do say so myself. Swerve Strickland was bleeding in this match. Swerve did a Meteora to Jon Moxley through a table on a ladder. This match was pretty fun, I will say. A pretty decent match. But during the ending, when the referee got knocked down, Hangman Adam Page came out, and it looked like he was going to hit Swerve, but then he considered hitting Mox, almost like he was hinting at helping Swerve win the championship. But before too long, obviously the Death Riders got involved, which was inevitable at this point. I mean, Jon Moxley having a match against anyone, you know that the Death Riders are going to come out. But in a moment that I thought they were actually going to pull the trigger on Swerve was when the Ops came out, Samoa Joe, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata, to try to fight off the Death Riders. But after this, Swerve Strickland hit the Swerve Stomp, but he was selling the effects of the entire match. And as he was slowly trying to crawl over to the cover, the lights went black for a good 10 seconds. And then the Young Bucks came out for the first time in 6 months, hit the BTE trigger on Swerve, and Mox immediately rolls over to the cover and gets the win in this match. Holy shit, we need to talk about this match. Obviously, I agree with a lot of people who are saying this. This was easily the weakest point in the entire show. I get that the Young Bucks' motives costing Swerve was obviously because of the whole Elite versus Team AEW shit from Blood and Guts last year. But this took way too long to pay off that feud. I understand long-term booking, but this just seemed like a cheap ploy to have Jon Moxley retain the AEW World Championship. It was almost like they were trying to recreate the Avengers Endgame moment from WrestleMania 40, but the heel won at the end. It was almost like the Empire Strikes Back kind of thing. But I will say that I'm pretty intrigued with the whole Hangman and Swerve saga. Obviously, if you saw my most recent video from the Wolf Den Wrestling podcast, we actually hinted at this possibility of Hangman possibly helping Swerve try to win the AEW World Championship, and hopefully we expand on that storyline. But I do agree with a lot of people that this was a waste on trying to have Hangman actually help his arch rival win back the World Championship just to have Swerve lose. And what are the Young Bucks going to do against Swerve Strickland? I know that this is probably going to set up anarchy in the arena at Double or Nothing on May 25th, but this wasn't really the way to do that. And again, this just seemed like a way to get Jon Moxley to get the win. I do agree with a lot of people who say that Jon Moxley is easily the worst AEW World Champion of all time, but that honestly goes without saying, because the only other contender for that title is CM Punk, because both of his title reigns were cut short due to injury, so it didn't really, set the bar too high with the title of worst AEW World Champion. I really don't want to wait until All In when Moxley inevitably loses the title to either Will Ospreay or even Hangman, or we have to wait until Darby Allin is done climbing Mount Everest to take the title from Moxley. But yes, Moxley wins to end off the show. and that was AEW Dynasty. Minus the main event and really the weird, restarting the match to the Ring of Honor World title match, I gotta say this event was actually very good. Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight really blew me away with, how good both of these men worked off of each other. The FTR heel turn was really well done. The International Championship match was absolutely amazing. And I am very, very happy that Adam Cole is finally a champion in AEW. This was a very good pay-per-view. Basically from start to finish, minus the main event. And I know a lot of people really didn't like this whole show, but I feel like most people's opinion on the show was really due to the main event. If you take the main event and the fact that the Young Bucks really helped Jon Moxley retain the championship, this show was actually probably one of the best shows AEW has produced in quite a while. And I do actually hold some truth in that, in my honest opinion. This show went on from 8 p.m. until 12:30, but I would say I didn't really feel like I sat in my room for like 5.5 hours to watch an AEW show. Usually when I watch AEW, there will be points where I just take a break. And I know I admitted I did for the Toni Storm and Megan Bayne match, but I wasn't really invested in that anyway. But other than that, I watched the entire show start to finish, and I wasn't really that disappointed, even with the Young Bucks coming out. But, it's just my personal opinion. I know people might call me now a Tony Khan dick sucker because now a lot of people on Twitter are now really calling for the death of AEW, which just goes to show if AEW really listens to fan criticism, people aren't actually going to be pleased. You can't please the IWC. I know when people were really complaining about AEW's ratings and, cable TV is dying, go to HBO Max, people still hate on AEW. Hey, maybe AEW should go to smaller arenas. AEW did that, and people still hate on AEW. A lot of the main criticisms that AEW has, Tony Khan has listened, but the only thing that Tony Khan really seems to put his foot down on is Mercedes Moné being booked in every major part of the women's division and the Death Riders basically taking over AEW. Besides that, I gotta say AEW has gotten a lot more enjoyable in the year 2025, and no, that is not just because I'm mad that Jey Uso is inevitably going to be WWE World Champion and because the road to WrestleMania is complete dog shit in my honest opinion. No, it's because AEW is actually a lot more enjoyable now. But that's just my honest opinion. If I were to give the show a grade, I'd say maybe a B, slight B minus, because of the main event and the Ring of Honor World title match. But besides that, I really enjoyed myself. But ladies and gentlemen, what are your thoughts on AEW Dynasty? I'd very much love to see what you all have to say. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. If you're new here, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to turn post notifications on so that way you never miss an upload. Be sure to support the Universe mode. Be sure to support all the other content on the channel. More content on the way. Be sure to follow me on social media as well on WillymYT on Twitter and the official WillymM on Instagram. And with all that being said, this has been your boy Will from Will's Wrestling Corner. I will see you in the next video. Be good people and peace.